Knife only whittle on a 1x1 block, 2.5 inches tall. And today we're going to carve little caricature busts, just like these guys right here, right? Look at that. So the one in the middle is the one we're going to carve today. But the idea here, once they're painted even, is they look pretty detailed. Like, look at that guy, right? That's fun. That's a fun little thing. Like, these are kind of busts that kind of have the look like you might see them in a museum or something like that. So that's what we're going for. That's what we're going to do. It's knife only, 2.5 inch tall, 1x1 block. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Using just a knife, I'm going to use this Badger State detail blade that I've got right here, which is a really fun knife. I really like that. To start this, in the top of the block, I'm going to draw a line to connect our points. That will help me keep my face centered as I do this, because we're going to carve the face on the corner of the block. Now for this, I'm going to carve kind of like this style where it's a bust and he's got a little base to him. So I'm going to pencil on a base, and I am just going to make that right about yay big. Let's see how big that is. Ooh, about 1/4 inch. So just barely under 1/4, but like about 1/4 inch. Go with 1/4 inch, you'll be just fine. And continue that line all the way around the carving. Now for the base, about yay far up. Let's see how far that is. Let's do it at 3/4 inch. Okay, so 3/4 inch, that's where we're going to go. Just like so. It's not that big of a spot to take out. Okay. Now, while we carve this, up here in the left-hand corner of the screen, this overlay is this piece of wood here. What we're carving right now is shown right there. So if you're ever curious, like, what does that cut look like when he's done, this is what it looks like, the front and back side view kind of thing going on there, so you can see exactly what we got going on. We're not going to do anything complicated with the shirt. That is all something you can learn in other videos. There are people who do caricature carvings that are much more detailed. We're just going for a basic, how do I carve a face? So I got something to practice on, okay? Now, about midway down the block, halfway in, that's where we're going to start to carve our ears, and we're going to start to bring that head in about halfway. So halfway between this line and the corner, I'm drawing 2 marks here. That's the sides of the head. And right here between that corner and that corner, that's going to be the back of the head. That's going to be the back of our head, and up here is where our nose is going to be. We can adjust anywhere in here for where our nose is going to go. So I'm not going to give you a lot of measurements outside of what we just did, because then you adjust things accordingly, and every single one you do is going to be different. So about midway down here on each side, that's where I'm going to start to carve my ears. And to do that, I'm just going to go in right here and carve up from that point, kind of curving in to make myself a flat-ish plane. Like so. Like so, right? And that's just bringing that line in so I have a spot that I can put the ear. I want a flat plane. I can start to put that ear on. A little bit more. Just like so. And just like so. Now, we can work on that back of the head right now if we want to, but we don't have to. So let's leave that for right now, okay? I want my nose, let's say I put my nose right here, okay? And that is, like, if that's the midway point in the carving, I am maybe 1/4 inch up, maybe-ish, kind of, sort of. Don't get stuck on the measurements here. Pick a spot that's somewhere between the bottom and halfway up the top from that bottom section, and put that nose there. Because we're working on feeling proportions, working on learning them, and not working on so much as making an exact replica of my carving. That's not the goal here. The goal here is to be able to make faces on a 1x1 and be able to experiment a little bit. Now, I've got that stop cut here, okay? That's just a stop cut, and I went in maybe 1/4 inch underneath that nose. Now, from that point, I'm going to go just past the corner. I'm not going to go right at the corner, just past it a little bit. I'm going to create a little bit of a wing like that right there. Okay, and do the same thing on this side. Not quite on the corner, but a little bit past. And if I do it at the exact same angle, it creates a symmetrical nose. If I can bring it down or bring it up, it's going to change a bit of the whimsy to the nose. You can see this one here, it's hanging down a little bit on one side versus the other. And that just adds character to the face, right? This one's very much straight across. This one's angled a little bit, and they're pretty even, pretty symmetrical. But how you do this and how you change it can depend. And this one's they're much more higher up on the sides there. This one I did recently. I just did this one yesterday. So you can change how you do this and change what you get by changing the angles on those noses. Now, for this nose here, I'm going to carve in and up, swooping cut. I'm going to take off maybe 1/4 of an inch, like so. Not quite 1/4 of an inch, but you can see what we're going with. Okay, like that. Then this flat plane here, same thing. And then this flat plane here, same thing, just like so. Brought the head in. I got a little bit of wood that kind of fell off there, and that's okay. Now I want to start making a plane for the face. So I'm going to cut in right here and then come down to it. Same thing here. Like that. Bring that knife in here. Like that. And these angles here, I am not coming in exactly straight down, okay? But enough to make that plane just like that. That's where I'm gonna hide some eyes in there, okay? Now, for this caricature, the thing that to remember that makes ears look appropriate is ears start at the middle of the head, which is where that line is right here. So that is the front of our ears right there. And we know that on the other side, it can be exactly the same by following that line from the top right here, and we just bring that line right down. There's the front of our ears. People put ears way too far forward and the heads way too often. It just looks wrong. If you do this, it's going to look right, and you can still exaggerate proportions. Now, the bottom of the ear goes in line with the bottom of the nose. It comes straight across. And the top of the eyes, or right here, like in the midsection right there, that is about where you put the top of the ear, top of the ears. But this can be exaggerated. We can come over like so, a little bit higher, and then this box, that box is where we're going to put our ears, right there. That's easy to figure out. The other side here, same thing, and we're transferring these lines from where we see on the front. And if we do that, we can be in line on the back as we turn this in the same spot, and our ears will be symmetrical. Now I need to flatten this out a bit more towards the back. I don't have enough flat plane there to get that ear in there the same width as the other side. If I was trying to do elf ears or Spock ears, this line would be coming up to here and down like so, and I'd be doing the same thing here, right there, okay? So if I did it, it's the same exact ear, but I just change the shape. I angle that up and I angle this up, and all of a sudden we've got elf ears rather than regular ears. But we're not doing that. I'm just going to go straight across right here, okay? I just want you to know that's an option for you, something you can think about. Now for this ear, I am going to put that tip in right here at that corner, okay, and rock that knife in a little bit right here. And I'm just going to get a little bit of depth right there, not much, okay? Then from that tip, carve down and in just to create a little bit of depth. I want you to stay flat in the front right now and just create a little bit of depth toward the back. Just like so. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom of the ear. Oh, I don't have a thumb guard for my offhand. If you're going to do paring cuts, you want to have something protecting this thumb, because a paring cut is where you work the knife like this motion right here into your hand, where you're rotating the fingers in like so. It's great, but if you don't keep that thumb out of the way, you'll wind up poking that knife. It's very easy to do, to make a mistake, but what I'm going to do is put that tip right in here, and just like in the top, kind of curve that around to bring some separation to the bottom of that ear. Because I haven't decided what's going to happen underneath that ear yet. Is there going to be a lot of hair down there? Is the shirt going to come up really high? So I don't want to carve too much of that out yet until I decide that. I figure all that kind of thing out while I'm carving, not before I'm carving usually, because I enjoy carving from a block, and some folks don't. Some folks do rough outs or cutouts, and everyone's different in what they enjoy doing. But right there. So cut the back of that ear off too. I'm just making that square like that, and we're going to do the same thing here to the other side. Same way, right in that corner to start with, and then push that down. Oh, I went up too high. Let's fix that angle. That was more of an elf angle right there. Okay. Right there. And there. There we go. And there we go. So we got that ear started to be developed. And you can see we're almost even in the back, but not quite. So how do we adjust that? We can take the top off it right there. That brings the top pretty close to in line. We can bring a little bit of the bottom off right there. That makes the bottom a lot closer. So we're not perfect, but we're a lot better right there. Okay. Now, let's take off from about the midway section of those ears and take off just a bit on the back of the head, just to help me start to line that face up appropriately. And then I'm just going to come up and take about 1/4 of an inch off the back of that carving like that right there. Okay. That gives me a bit more understanding of where all I'm going to be. Now I'm going to bounce around because I bounce around on carvings a lot. So I got an idea of where the face is going to go. We can bring that chin down here if we want to make a beard. We can bring that chin up here or up even higher and just put a small mouth in there. However we want to do this mouth and this face, we can adjust it accordingly and have really significantly different features. We could have brought that nose down here and had really big eyes, but instead of put that nose up higher, we go with smaller eyes, right? Any of that can be done. So I want to take out this section in here real fast and work on the base real quick before I get too far into this. So I'm going to push cut into that corner. I'm going to cut down to it. And I'm going to be careful not to push all the way through my base because I want to keep that base. So make sure you do your stop cuts like so, and then carve down to them. Don't get too all ham and push too far, too much, because otherwise you'll wind up cutting off that base. You don't want to do that if you want to have the base. I like having the base because it gives something a little neat to sit on. It looks very planned, looks very fun. There we go. And I want to get out a good bit of this because in the back here, you don't have to do this, and you could leave it. And you can see, like, when I started doing these originally, I didn't do this kind of thing. But I like the look of how that looks right there. That's so fun to me that it looks like a little sculpture you would see in a museum, you know? And I really, really enjoy that. I really do. I love it. I love it a lot. And so I want to do that. So it looks like something you might see in an art museum. Just curving that line in there, like so, on both sides. This side's easier to do with a paring cut for me because I'm right-handed. But you do it how you want to. However makes it easier on you. That's what you should be doing. Right there. Okay, that's a good start. That's what that is. We don't have to go crazy deep, but that's a good start. Now I want to separate out that base all the way around. So on the side here, I'm going to come up about 1/4 of an inch and go for about 1/4 of an inch depth around this as well. So you can see what I did there? Maybe not 1/4 of an inch, maybe it's like just barely over a 1/16 maybe. Just enough to set that line into place. Just enough to show there's a delineation, to show there's a difference. Right, like so. Right, like so. been long enough since I made a video that I forget to talk the way that I normally do in videos, so I apologize for that. I have not had the opportunity in so long to do a video because so much is going on in my life right now, and that's just the way it happens sometimes, right? We've got that base dug out a little bit. Now here's the other part. All of these saw marks are going to take paint and stain differently than the parts of the wood that have been touched by a knife. So we want to make sure we get all of those rough marks off. And I should have done this earlier. It would have been a little bit easier rather than doing it at this point. So if you're doing it over again, remember that for next time, okay? And we're just going to take those saw marks off now. And I say this in every video because I never know what video is going to be someone's first video. We don't actually need any of those lines. So I can take those marks off, clean those up. Like so. Same thing here in the back. So we got the saw marks off as best we can. Now, what kind of a caricature are we looking to create with this guy? Let's start working on a chin. Do we want to do a chin? Do we want to do a beard? Do we want to do a mouth? I think a beard and mustache can be quite easy. So let's do a mouth and make it a little bit more difficult, because I think a mouth could be a little bit harder, and do a solid chin, okay? Do a solid chin right through here, right there. And that's what, just under halfway there. If you bring it down lower, it's got to be a different style character. If you bring it up higher, it's a different style character. Don't get concerned with where I put that line. Get concerned with where do you want that line. How big of a face do you want him to have? Again, don't try to replicate my carving. Try to use it as a guide to make caricatures of your own style that are just a little bit different than mine. And you can make several, you can make lots of them, you can change all kind of things up. Like I said, there's all kind of options. Like, look at this guy with the mustache, right? With the mouth. I mean, like, you can do all kinds of things. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now we're gonna put that chin. Let's take a little bit of that hard corner off right there. We set that chin in right here. That's where our chin's gonna start. Now, if that chin's starting there, I'm gonna bring it around, and you're gonna see it's gonna come up slightly from the right side to the left side, because the chin's coming up, because we want him to have a very defined jawline for this guy here, okay? I want him to be like the heroic figures you see in cartoons, right? Big, strong jawline. If I wanted him to be fat, kind of inbred, kind of, I could bring that jawline down maybe to the neck, and make it look like he's got a big double neck. You can do whatever you want to here. For me, I'm going to bring that jawline up, and so I'm going to start carving in. Now we're doing this head on an angle, okay? It's a turned head on the base. And so I need to bring, this is the chest, I need to bring this chest up and in, okay? I need to bring this chest up and into the neckline in this direction on each side right here, okay? So this is the neckline here, and it needs to come in like so. I need to bring that in all the way up there. So let's do that right now. Just like so. Just like so. Just like so. Okay, so we started to bring that in. Look at how big that jawline is. That's way too big. It's terrible, and it looks terrible, and that's okay for right now. We're going to fix that as we go, but we've got room, we've got options for how to do that. What I'm doing here is I'm bringing that jawline all the way in across the side, because for his face, it's two planes here. We went all the way across over here to underneath the ear. We need to go all the way across over here to underneath the ear too. But here's where our shoulder is. The head is turned into the shoulder, right like this. Okay, the head's turned back, so that shoulder is right underneath the jawline. So we can't get too much depth in here, but we do need to get some we need to get a little bit to elucidate, to illuminate, to show that there's a separation between that shoulder and the head. So we're not going for like a real big thick neck. We're going for just like big head. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to get better at the head and show off the head. I'm going to take off about 1/4 inch on that corner. Okay, just like so. And the same thing over here. That's having a hard time going through. It doesn't want to go through. If it doesn't want to go through, change direction, change tact, because that would have just split and ripped a lot of wood off. Oh, and that did anyway too. That split too, but still it would cut a lot easier, so it's a little bit safer. This is actually a terrible piece of wood, and I am struggling with getting it to behave the way that I want it. If you're looking at this thinking, what's going on there? It's that. It is not pithy, but it's wiry, kind of. It's just, yeah, it's all over the place. So now I'm just bringing in the sides of the face there. You can bring them in however you want to. You can see how we went down lower with that swoop on this side, and then we did on this side. And we can try to fix that a little bit if I come in here and I can swoop in a little bit like that and bring that angle down to make it more even if I want to. But it doesn't have to be even because of caricature. One side can be a little bit lopsided than the other, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just fine, okay? Now for this nose, let's go ahead and start working on facial features again. We'll work on figuring out those ears and finishing them here in a little bit. For this nose, right here, we're going to put a V-notch in, about midway if you want to, along this line, or just wherever you want to, because how far out you go from that middle point here, this is where the wing of the nose we're going to build is going to be. And so you can make a really wide nose by getting out here. You can make a thinner nose by getting in here. So wherever you want to, we're just going to do a little bitty V-notch, like this. Okay? And take that out. We do the same thing on the other side. We want to be the same distance as this side. So whatever distance you went to over here, and you can do whatever you wanted to, we need to replicate it over here. Okay? And see, I went a little bit higher, and this is going to create a little bit of a look to his face. If you got a brush and you like it, this is what I like right here. There's a lot of fuzzies in there. It doesn't look... There's a lot of fuzzies in there. It doesn't look as good as I want it to. And that cleans some of them out, right? It makes it look a little bit better to me. I enjoy that better. So that's what we just did. Took care of. Now, let's see here. Taking the saw marks off the front of the face. Okay, now... So that's where our smile lines are starting right here, the wings of the nose. So we're gonna bring that smile line down, okay? And you bring it. Let's say you bring it down halfway. Here's something you can do too. This is a trick I learned from a carver named Ryan Olson, who's actually a very famous caricature carver. The caricature carvers in America. He's amazing, right? If you come down and then angle it in, that can be where the mouth comes out for a big smile. So let's say we do that right here, okay? We angle that in afterwards, and that's going to be where our smile comes in for this guy, okay? So that's what we're doing right here. Let's bring that line down, okay? I just used the tip of the knife, and I sunk it in about yay far, right there. I do the same thing on the other side. I'm flipping the carving over because I'm right-handed. Bring that line in, and I'm going flat in straight on the plane. So like this flat plane of the carving, I'm going straight in, and I just come down to where the base of that knife is right there, in there in that corner, okay? Now I'm going to do the same thing here from that corner, and I just bring it down, and I'm deeper on the inside of that corner and shallower on the outside of that corner because I want to slope it up. Like so. You chip it out, and then like so, like that. That's one side. And then I don't want a hard line here. So I'm going to soften that line and that line right there. And that creates a good smile line for us. So same thing on this side here. Exactly same cuts, just mirrored like so. And then I'm going to do this paring cut up in there. And then up into that nose area. So what have we just done here? What are we doing? A mouth does not sit. Excuse me. Okay. First off, let me clean up this right here. There we go. Much better. Much better. Okay, so a mouth does not sit on a flat plane. It sits on a round plane. It is a round thing, okay? So a mouth needs to have this round plane that we're building right here to look appropriate. So what we're going to do next is we're going to start to do our mouth, and we're just going to do a smile, okay? Just like so. We're just higher on the outsides, and we go right into this corner here because that's the corner of the mouth, right up into that corner of the mouth. And then underneath it, we need to build that lip out. So we need to bring some of this out. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to take off the tip of that chin. Okay. And then we're going to create a V-notch. Nice and slow. And just deepen it right here beneath that mouth. Okay, so that's going to bring those lips out, and we can bring that chin in a little bit if we want to. We can round that chin out if we want to, but that's going to, like you can see right now, like that's brought those lips out just a bit, right? So here is an easy part that seems hard. We're just going to pencil that in with a knife, and I just trace that line coming straight in, right? And then we can make the top or the bottom lip stick out a little bit by carving right down to it, like so. And V-notch it a little bit, okay? Again, we're going for very simple. This is not complex. This is just something simple to get you started doing a little caricature bust so you can try to experiment and play and do fun things. And so there's a fun little kind of expression. See how one side is kind of up a little bit, and the other side's not. However you do it, it's going to wind up creating new kind of expressions, and you'll see like, oh wow, when I did it this way, I messed up by doing it this way, but like it made him look like he was smirking. It made him look like he knew what was going on, even though I didn't. Like he had an insight into what was happening around him that maybe I didn't see, right? It's kind of fun, right? So there's our mouth. We got the start of the nose. To finish this nose wing here, let's go back up to here. That smile line is coming around here. That smile line direction, that is going to be our nose wing. So I'm going to put a little cut right like so, right there. Man, you can't even see that. That is so slight. Okay, let me put that knife back in there. So that's the cut right here. Okay, it's not much. From there, on the top of it, I'm going to carve the top of it out and around to try to create a bit of a wing to that nose, and you can kind of see the shadow to it there. Okay, so the same thing on the other side, right here, and I'm going to try to carve out like so. Now I want to remove that hard line along the top of the nose. Remove that hard line along the top of the nose. Okay. And if I want to even up that nose right now, I can do that if I didn't like the look of it, So we got a good nose sticking out, okay? On this, I want to create a little bit of a slope to the nose. Right now, it goes kind of goes straight up in there, right? I don't like that. I want to curve this face in a bit. So that's what I just did in the nose right there. Okay, I curve that line. Now, a blade like this, you can't curve a line very easy if you use the back side of it, okay? Because it can't turn on that width. I use just the tip to do a curving, swooping line like that, because when I just barely get in there, all of a sudden the back edge of that blade isn't preventing me from doing something. If I did it up here, I wouldn't be able to make that curve because the blade's too thick and long. So that's why you got to use that tip to do little swoops and little curves. You got to barely get in there, you know, and use just the tip because it's not as deep as this. It's much more shallow, so you can do that with it. Okay. So I think I want to deepen this right here. There we go. That's better. Okay. Now we're bouncing around again. Let's worry about our eyes. So when it comes to eyes, you can waggle your eyebrows when you want to, but how you have your eyebrows, if you have them coming up, he looks angry. If you have them coming down, he can be sad, right? You can change emotion based on how you want them. So I don't want him to be angry. I don't want him to be sad. I want him to just kind of be like, you know, I don't know. I want to be smirking. So I'm going to have those eyebrows come down a little bit, okay? And you're going to need to set an inside edge of this nose as well. So I'm going to draw those lines right here from that corner of that nose. Let me put it right here, from that corner of that nostril coming straight up. And I am going to make that line come down, not up. I want to even it on each side. So I'm going to have it come down like so. Okay? That's my goal here. That's my goal. So I'm going to put that tip right in that corner, and I'm going to carve straight in and out on this plane right here, this flat plane of the carving. I'm going to come straight in, and I'm going to curve around that line, just like so. Okay? And then on this angle here on the side of the nose, I'm going to come in at an angle, and I'm going to angle it in towards the eye like this right here as I carve down along that nose here, just like so. And see, I'm not going all the way down right there. Look, I'm keeping that tip to where it's deeper up here, shallower right there, like that. And now I'm going to carve from this point up and into that to create that kind of thing right here. Now I want to swoop in that cheek more up in here. Okay, and we started to form that. Now, I would do this if I was doing a bigger caricature with a U-gouge and make this a nice smooth transition right here along the edge of the nose. Since I'm not doing it with that, so we're doing it knife only, I'm going to try to smooth this out via knife. Okay? And now I want to, right here, from that nostril flare, I'm going to try to curve this section right here. Okay? So this section right there. Put a mark on it so you can see it kind of clearly. I'm going to try to curve that like this right here, using just that tip, and that puts a little curvature to the face that we didn't have there. We're not doing this with a gouge, right? It's not much, but it's a little bit. So we do the same thing here on the other side to set in that brow. Same line, just repeating the same things. And then a pairing cut up and in there. Like so. And then curving that in. And then trying to round that out a bit, smoothing those lines out a bit if I can. Got any fuzzies? Use your stiff bristle brush, and it usually knocks a lot of them loose right there. So we got good progress, right, on that head. Now, what do we want to do next? What do we want to do next? Let's put the rest of the eyes in. So the thing about eyes is they do not have to be nearly as complicated as you might think they do. They can be really emotional, really hold a lot of emotion, even with simple designs. If you look at this guy in the middle, his eyes are barely more than a square. I don't know what shape you call that. I'll have it pop on the screen maybe, but it's just barely that with a line underneath for a lower eyelid. If you're going to skip an eyelid, you can skip the top one or you can skip the bottom one, but if you skip both, it looks kind of weird. So this guy here has both the upper eyelid and lower eyelid. This guy here has only a lower eyelid, and this guy here has only an upper eyelid. He's barely got a line right there for a lower eyelid too, but you can skip, like I said, one or the other, and they can look fairly okay, but if you skip both, it looks kind of weird. So we want to be able to get one or the other, or both, depending on what you want to try and do. So those are just good examples to use. Again, like this one here is one I did more than a year ago. I mean, I'm like, he was one of the first caricatures I tried to do. Like he's terrible, but I have him here just as an example because I know that you're going to be producing ones that are hopefully better than these ones because you had my guidance. That's our goal. And these ones weren't just knife only. I used a dockyard tool on those. So okay, back to what we were doing. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and do a simple design, right? We already got that for the top of our eye, okay? So let's say the eye comes over and down, and this whole section here will be our eye, okay? The thing about making sure an eye is symmetrical is the tear duct right here has to be the same on each side. So flip it over, and to me this is easy right here. Then I draw that line the same way and come over. And if you have them like so, then it looks symmetrical. That line could maybe stand to go a little bit farther down, but I think that's going to be okay, right? So I think that we're going to be just fine right here. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to start and come straight in on this flat plane right here, and I'm going to come straight over to the edge of that, and I'm going to come in here and come down to that edge, right? Now I'm going to sink in that knife on the inside edge here and along the top as well. And I'm going to carve down to this eye on the inside, like so. And then carve up. And then right in that corner, I'm going to try to take that a pyramid cut kind of out to round that eye a bit. What to do? And there is one eye, right? Not perfect. It's not crazy complicated, and it'll look so good when you paint it. Okay? Now we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Same thing. A good piece of advice, too, is to not do the right eye first like I just did. A good piece of advice is to do the left eye first if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, do the opposite. Because whichever eye is easier for you, it is easier to replicate on that side than the other one. So if this eye is harder for me to do because on the opposite side of my hand, I should do this eye first, and then if I mess up, I can replicate it over here, and then it'll look okay. You follow along? If I mess up over here and I got it a little bit too long, a little bit too tall, a little bit too short, I can adapt over here because it's easier because I'm right-hand dominant. So if you're left-hand dominant, obviously you want to start with the right eye. If you're right-hand dominant, start with the left eye. But for right now, I'm just replicating, and I don't mind doing this eye second. That's what I was talking about here, okay? Look at these two eyes. The right eye is a bit bigger than the left eye because I went deeper in on this corner. And so it looks like it's a bit bigger. So I can try to correct that by coming in and digging out a little bit more on that eye. Okay, and now they look more symmetrical, but not quite perfect. And that's okay. They don't need to be perfect, okay? Now, we can put our upper eyelid in here just by drawing a line right there and then carving up to it, okay? And that will create our eyelid inside of this eye area right there. So if I just straight across, okay, and then right up to it. And there's an upper eyelid There's an upper eyelid right in that eye, right like so. Nothing complicated. Make sure you get it symmetrical on the other side. If you don't, he's going to look like he's got one eye a little bit open wider than the other one, which could be fine. Maybe that's the look you're going for, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. So we got those upper eyelids in. Now, let's say we want to put a lower eyelid in. How are we going to do that? First off, right here in the corner of the eye, I'm going to put a bit of a chip cut in here. I'm going to push that knife blade in and carve up to it because I want that upper section of the eye to be a bit higher. So I'm going to do this again on the other side, maybe a little bit clearer for you over here. I'm going to push in right like so. Let me get this camera. There we go. Push in right like so. And then carve up to it to bring that kind of down like so. Okay. And now, first off, I need to get rid of those pencil lines. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the knife tip in right here and then carve over to it. And that's going to create a little shelf there under the eye, a little V notch kind of thing, right? You don't have to do this. So we're just basically doing a little V cut right here along the base of the eye with the knife. And I continue it right in to there. Like that. And that creates a lower eyelid. So you don't have to create that lower eyelid. If you want to, you absolutely can, and that's the way to do it, right? Now, where we're at next, we need to decide what kind of hair we're doing, because we got our face, we got eyes in, we got a mouth. What kind of hair are we doing here? What are we getting at? What are we going to do? So I don't know that I want to do too much hair. I don't like hair, but I want to be able to show you how to do hair. So let's say we're going to do a little bit of hair, okay? If you get a bigger block, you can get much bigger hair, get poofy hair, get crazy hair. We're trying to do this in a 1x1 by 2.5. And so we could have adjusted this face down and gave him big poofy hair. So if we brought this nose down to here, put a really tiny mouth in, and then eyes, we'd have a lot more room for hair. And you can do that and adjust things accordingly. Like, here's a 3-inch tall one I did as a doodle a long time ago. And you just adjust the proportions. Like, look how big that mouth is. The mouth doesn't have to be that big, but it's the same thing that we're doing here. We're just stretching proportions out. And look at the top of the eyes are right at the middle, top of the ears right at the middle of the eyes, the bottom of the ears are right at the bottom of the nose. That proportion is the same spot, and so the ears look symmetrical. They look fine because they're the right spot according to bottom of the ear and top of the eye. They could stand to be a little bit taller, I think. I think I was newer at this point. I think those ears should end at like right in here. They should be right there. It's where they probably should have ended. Maybe a little bit lower. But you get the idea, right? These ones are good because they're a bit higher than those ones are. Now, for this ear, let's go ahead and do this ear, and we'll put just a short haircut on him. We're going to take off this corner, this corner, this corner, and just barely take off corners. But then this one, we're coming from the midway point to the midway point. We're going to take off more on this back edge here. Let me show you what that looks like, okay? So we're going to take that off. And then just barely take that corner off. And now right here, we do a kind of a chip cut thing. Okay. Like so. And now we've got that ear mostly formed. Let's do this side here too. So same thing, just repeating. What to do? Do. Okay. So that gives us a better shape to our ears than what we had. Next thing we want to do is we want to do a cut that's going to separate these ears from our sideburns, because we're going to have sideburns come down like so. Okay, so we're going to do a cut that comes in right here down to there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of swerve it in. Okay, it's like an S shape. Don't have a piece of paper, do I? Shape I'm going to do. I'm going to do a cut. The ear is right here. Okay, I'm going to do a cut starting here, coming in, swooping down. So this is the cut I'm doing. Okay, kind of an S shape. This is round right here, not too sharp. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cut in around the ear, and this is the ear, the inside of the ear right here. Okay, this will be this right here will be the sideburn. Okay, that's what we're doing. So that's kind of an S-shaped cut, and that's what we're gonna do. And it's easier to show you right here. So I'm gonna do this, starting up here, coming straight in, and like so. Okay, now I'm gonna cut it from the inside out. Okay. Now, here's where I can get tricky. So we got that S-shaped cut in, right? Now I'm going to try to V-cut out a little bit the inside of the ear. And I'm going to do that with this back point right here, this corner being the spot where the V-cut's kind of coming up to, right? And that gives me some depth to the ear with just a knife. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? Doesn't look bad. So let's try to replicate that on the other side here, okay? The same kind of S-shaped cut. And then we relieve it from the other side, like so. And then I V-cut in to try to give that ear some depth. Okay. Same kind of thing, right, like so. Okay, fun, making good progress. We got an ear, and if we left that right there, that's enough for the ear. That we've got enough of an illusion of an ear. We don't have to do too much more. If we want to do more, we absolutely can. What we can do is draw a line. I'm going to draw this so it's easier for you to follow along. Okay, along the inside of it down to here. Okay, we're just going to kind of using this as an example again. We're going to draw a line like so, okay, on the inside of the ear, and then we're going to carve out and up to it. So I'm going to draw that line with the tip of the knife. And come down, and using just the tip. Let's do a paring cut on the side. Like that. And that separates out that outer earlobe a bit, you know. And if we want to put a little bit of line deep, you just do a pyramid cut like that. We come in straight again like this, right in the middle of that line. Carve up to it. And that creates a bit more of depth to it, a bit more, you know, something to look at, something to see, you know. So let's repeat that over here, okay? This might be easier to see. Let's try it again. So I'm going to do this line right here, okay? Just like so. That line. I'm going to trace it out and then carve up to it. We're not getting a lot of depth here. We're just creating a bit of a shelf. See right there? Just a bit of a shelf, okay? Now, right in that V channel we made, I'll put the tip of the knife right in that hole. I'm going to sink it in, okay? So take a look at that right there. You can see how deep I got that tip. Now, from the outer edge, shallow, I'm going to carve up and in and get some depth to it as I go in and shift that out. That creates a little bit of depth on the inside of that ear. Now, at the midway point or close to the back, I'm going to put it in again, like that, right here. And then from the outside edge or the back edge, I'm going to carve up and chip it out to create that secondary line there. You see I did? Okay. And that gives those ears a bit of look to them. And I kind of like that look, right? So now let's do the hair here. Our hair is going to come down. We're going to have sideburns right there. Hair's going to come over. The sideburns right there. On the back of the ear, right here in the midsection of this section here, we're going to come down and over, down and over, and that's the back of the hair. Right here, underneath the ear, this is where the jaw is going to end. So we're going to come straight down from right here, straight down from right here. So that strong jaw line is going to end right here at the front of the ear, I should say. The front of the ear, right at the front of the ear, in line with that, that's where it comes down at. Is that wrong? I did. The front of the ear, not the back of the ear, the front of the ear. So how do I do that? I'm going to start right here. I'm going to angle it slightly. So like I'm not right in this corner coming straight in. I'm going to angle it like so. And I'm going to come down from that jaw line straight in. And I got some good depth on that line right there. Okay. And then I carve right up to the ear, being very careful not to carve into the ear. Okay. I want to take out that jaw line and create depth up underneath the ear. And carve down to it a bit. Now right here, on that back edge here, that's where that hairline is going to be. So I'm going to sink that tip in right there behind the ear and rock it. And I'm going to cut that line right here behind the ear again so I can get a chip cut in there, like so. Set this hair up right along the back of the head. Okay, and this is a short haircut. You can do any kind of haircut you want to. Okay. Now we want that neck to be going into a shirt of some sort. So we're going to have that be our shirt here, just like so. And so I need to bring that neck in to it. So I carve right here. Just like so. Just like so. Bring that neck into that shirt. Again, for that back of that chin. Going right down. Right like so, all the way down. And then this side, we can right hand down. I'm going to carve from the top side. Take that off. Okay. And then you can soften this line here if you want to. Feel the need to. Right up to the middle part of the back of that ear. We'll stop cut there for the chip cut action. Carving up to it. There we go. Too fun. Okay. So we got the back of the hairline done. We've got, yeah, we're coming along. All right, now let's do the top of the head. I'm just going to start rounding this off and take all these saw marks here off the top. So all I'm doing is just taking off those hard corners just barely. And then all these saw marks here off the top of the head. Okay, and I round this all off. I'm going to take a little bit off the front of that right here because I want to bring that forehead in. Rounding it here, rounding it just a bit, okay, like so. See how that looks? And now, right across the front, I set in that hairline. And we give him a much bigger forehead if we wanted to. If we had brought that head down, we give him a huge forehead. Well, we don't, like we're doing here. We don't have to give him a huge forehead, okay? Just enough to delineate the edge of that eyebrow. Right there, just enough to delineate the edge of that eyebrow, like so. Okay, now we can start to work that hair. What kind of hairstyle do you want, you know? I'm going to just bring it around to where it looks vaguely head shaped because the head isn't squarish. So we're going to bring that up in the back here. around. Start to round that off. Like so. We want to set up where the bottom of that sideburn comes in. And not everyone has big sideburns like that, right? Now let's worry about the cheeks. We got very strong jaw there, which we don't have to have. You can actually, it's hard to do a swooping cut in this particular wood that I'm using. I'm going to bring this face in a bit on the sides, up to the cheekbones kind of, you know. We kind of think that's a good look. I like that for this face. And you don't have to do this. Maybe your character doesn't have this part. Maybe they just have this huge jawline. Maybe it's just massive jawline, right? And that's fine. So you can spend some time and adjust this head how you think you need to for the look you're going for. Take those hard edges off the corner of that jaw. But maybe that's just the way this guy looks. I feel like this side here is a bit thicker than this side. So I'm going to try to work that in. Like so, looks better. And all I'm doing with these V-cuts, these soft V-cuts here, I'm just trying to barely meet those together. And you can see this cheek here is not nearly as thick as this side here. I did that a little bit wrong, but that's okay. That's what happens. That's what you do. You adjust, you practice, and you learn, and you adjust as you go. But that gives us a very basic bust right here. And it's turned head on the corner, so it looks a bit more impressive than it might if we didn't do that turned head, which is fun. And right now I'm just cleaning up. I'm just adjusting things, and I don't need to be necessarily adjusting things. And just pick a color to paint the shirt, like this guy right here. And you can do it however you want to. We're not going to go for like too much detail on that. The idea here is to be able to carve a face, right? And have something that looks face-like for you. Yeah, I like that. He's got a big jaw. He's got a big jaw and he's fun. One last thing we can do is we can give him a bit of life by penciling in then he kind of comes to life a little bit, doesn't he? Oh, that's fun. That's fun. Anyway, yeah, that's a 1-by-1 caricature. All right, and that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for sticking around and in the video. I sincerely appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, head over to Facebook, Instagram, give me a like and a follow over there if you would, and give a special thank you to our Patreon subscribers for helping keep the lights on. I really appreciate them. Outside of that, though, I will see you folks next time. Bye.